So Startup Grind, we organize here in Zurich once a month. It's about 5.5 years that I've been organizing it here in Zurich. Aliki is my co-director, and we are organizing this together. Startup Grind is active in over 600 cities around the world, has a big global network. So if you're looking to connect in some other place, then just drop us a line and we'll see what we can do to put you in touch. Thank you so much to Google for hosting us tonight and for providing the space and the apero. And thank you to everyone who's participating tonight, and of course to Leah for joining us, giving us some of her time. So, we usually like to start off by finding out a little bit about you personally, where you come from. Are you from Switzerland? Where were you born?
Yeah, I was born in Zurich actually, but I grew up in Basel in a very small village. I bet nobody of you know it. It's Gelterkinden. Yeah, it's really small, and now I work in an even smaller place called Bannwil. 200 people live there, so it's super small. Somehow it happens that I always have the center of my life in small places.
And when you were growing up, did you already feel entrepreneurial? Did you, in school, were you trying to sell candy to your classmates or toy cars?
And not really. I mean, I always worked when I had holidays because I found it boring to just be at home when I was not traveling. But there was no fancy business when I grew up.
Did you have any ambitions? What did you think when you were a kid about what you would do when you grew up?
Oh, I didn't spend too much time thinking about it, to be honest. So things just happened how they happened. The only moment I really started thinking about my future was actually right after university, when I realized, oh, no, it's finished and I should start doing something. And it's when I decided that Carvolution would be the right thing to do.
Okay. And in your family as well, was there any influence from the family side, or?
Well, if this influence would have worked out to be an influence, I would end up in a very corporate life. So they always worked in big companies, but I mean, I found their job super interesting. I just didn't thought that it would be the right thing for me to do. So everything was open, and I decided to do the startup thing.
And so as you were studying and I assume you had other jobs and other apprenticeships. So how did that have any effect on you deciding to go the startup way instead of the corporate way?
Well, as I didn't really know where I wanted to go, I thought I'm just going to try out the first thing. So I ended up in a startup. It only existed some weeks. And I could actually do something I really like. I do horse riding in my free time. And I could set up a sponsoring, to have the concept, and then to actually also execute it. So this is where I found out that in the startup you can actually really work and do something, and you see what happens. So my first job was in a startup. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And after this, I somehow want to make sure, was it just because I love horses and show jumping, or was it actually the startup? So I went into to Berlin, to another startup, and I didn't really like what we were doing, but the job was still great. But after this, I was still not sure if the startups would be the right thing, and I went to a corporate. I went to Manor in Basel, and I also liked it. So it didn't help to try everything, because I liked everything. And I don't know, there was a big disappointment in a job or in a position I had.
So how did the transition come about to launching your? Tell us a little bit about the story of your current startup and.
Yeah, well, there was no crazy story like waking up in the morning and knowing that I would have to do a car subscription, because actually I'm not a big fan of cars. I barely know anything about cars, but I need a car in my everyday life. So how can I access a car without all the trouble of owning it? I was 22 back then, so a bit too old to still take my dad's car. So I needed another solution, and at the same time in the US, the model of subscription was coming up, and I thought, oh, it's amazing. Why is nobody doing that in Switzerland? This is how we then started with Carvolution. But yeah, it was an issue at the beginning that I don't know anything about cars. If this thing involves so many cars, and every day it gets more.
So how did that come about? Did you go out and buy 20 cars and, you know?
Just 10. But yeah, I had a list with car dealers, and I said, I was actually Googling it, how many percentage can you get if you buy 10 cars? I had the idea I would get 40%. I didn't get 40, but 30. I was still quite happy. And the guy who actually gave me this discount, he's now one of the co-founders. So now I know why he gave me these cars. They're horrible, they have bad configuration, but they were super cheap, and I was super happy, and he got the job.
That's interesting how, you know, because so many people in the audience are either starting their company, have started looking for the next opportunity or the next way to grow their opportunity, and I think that's an interesting thing is how, you know, you have to experiment and try things, and even if it turns out to be not the best, you don't know what even better might come out of that.
Yeah, I think that's true. If you have an idea, I mean, you're going to talk to everybody about it, obviously, and you just have to wait for the person who says, yeah, that sounds super crazy, but let's do it anyway. And this is how we got all our co-founders, and we're 5, so we're many co-founders. But yeah, it's actually perfect with the knowledge, the backgrounds they have, where some are younger, some are older. Well, no, they're not younger than me, but they're older, and yeah, it's nice with them.
In the very beginning, when you were looking to buy your first sets of cars, another topic that comes up often with when wanting to start a startup is how do you fund the launching of your venture? How did you tackle that challenge? And buying a car is not the same as buying, you know, some I don't know, some cushions that you want to sell on Etsy.
Yeah, well, when I started, I didn't spend too much time thinking about how much money we would actually need to finance cars. I had barely an idea. You can have cheap cars or expensive cars, but if you want to scale it, you need a solution. And, well, as I couldn't buy myself a car, otherwise I would have done that, we needed money right from the beginning. And it works a bit the same as with the co-founders. You start talking to people, these people start talking to other people, and you just have to find investors that really stand behind your model and your case. But on the other hand, you cannot expect somebody to invest in your startup if you're not willing to invest everything you have. With 23 years, you cannot give like 100,000, but you can still show them somehow, look, I saved some money. It doesn't matter how small the amount is, but I think this is something our investors really appreciate when I said, look, it's small, but it's what I saved. Can I contribute my own savings to it? And they were like, yeah, but are you sure? And, yeah, I'm sure. Look, I make you believe this works, so please let me believe it works too. And this is where my money is at the moment, sitting in the company.
That's a topic that I've heard come up before as well. And you know, is investors really want to see how much you are willing to put into it, and not just, you know, get other people's money, but put your own effort into it as well. And, you know, that really makes a difference in helping them to believe that you're willing to go all the way with this. And yeah. So it's interesting what you said. You know, it doesn't matter if it's 10,000 or 100,000. The fact that you're putting your all in makes such a difference. From a business perspective or from a fundraising perspective, there's I think 2. So last month was Female Founders Month around the world, and for Startup Grind we host women entrepreneurs and supporting diversity and also highlighting some of the challenges that women entrepreneurs and startups face. And a topic that often comes up is when fundraising, it's often more challenging as a woman to raise funds. Did you experience any of that based on either your being a woman or you being very young?
Well, I think if I would have faced that problem, I would have tried to convince the wrong investors. I don't think this should ever be a thing if somebody is a woman or a man. I mean, yeah, now that I'm in the car industry, we're more men than women, obviously, but this was never a thing. I think it's about the person, the personality, and just showing them, look, we start and we need the money now, we're not going to discuss it 2 more months. The market is here, let's just do it. And no, I never experienced it being a thing. No.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's. I think, like you said, the market opportunity is plays a key role as well, and so from that perspective, obviously there's an interest in that, and you know, like someone we were talking to earlier said that in other countries it's a more common thing. How or what made you believe that now is the right time for Switzerland? Because often with startup ideas, many startups fail because you're either too late or you're too early. And getting the timing right with your product or your concept is really important. So did you do some research, or how did you go about understanding if it's the right time?
Well, I'm sure I could have spent some more time on doing a research, but I think everything else than last March, like March 2018, would have been too late. So all the time would have been spending there about now or even before, when would have been the right time instead of just starting. I believe the right moment would have been much earlier. So
I guess there is that factor as well. You have to just start and see what happens, and you know, if you're there's always the opportunity to pivot if you realize you're too early, but being in a lucky spot, the right place, the right time, plays a big role, and it's interesting to see how that is becoming active now in Switzerland. It's more and more. And do you notice, is it more Swiss people, or is it more expats, or is it what's the ratio?
well, I would really like to think that we have this super easy to target customers. You say, okay, 35, isn't that job? But it's more like a lifestyle that they have. There's wanting to have a hassle-free and convenient solution for the car, being open enough to thinking maybe car ownership is not the future, even though it's obvious that it's not the future. They're expats, they're families, they're people who just got their license, they're small and medium-sized companies. So there's everything, and we still learn who actually wants our subscription. And I think as a startup, sometimes you believe this is your target group, and all of a sudden everybody else wants it. So you have to listen to your customers, talk to them. Why wouldn't you have taken a subscription? Why did you come to us? And this is how you learn, and you can always target a little bit better.
How do you talk to your clients, or how do you get that feedback?
I call them. I think that's the best thing to do. If you have 100 customers and you want to find out more about them, just call them. I mean, they're people they want to talk to, even though if you spend 15 minutes, maybe you wasted this time, but at least you know who's your client, and we send them surveys, and if they don't answer, I call them again saying hello. And yeah, I like doing that. So.
How many people call their clients on a regular basis?
Well, I don't do it every day.
So maybe that's something to try out. Being on a startup, or I guess life in general, it's a journey, and you're constantly learning. Is there, besides your coworkers, is there someone that like a mentor or a coach or an advisor that you rely on, or that has been instrumental in your journey?
Well, I think I have many, many different mentors for many different problems in my life. There's not the one mentor I ask everything, but the investors we have, I'm close to them. I can, when I'm scared or I don't know what to do, I call them. When I think it's the end of the world, they tell me, no, it's easy. Happened to 100 other startups. Just chill, look forward, do something else. It didn't work. Okay, you wasted some money. Can happen. Don't do it again. yeah, and then of course family, friends, I mean, they can all contribute to even just listening to you and giving their own thoughts. I think everybody can be a mentor to somebody, and just talking to people, yeah.
So not being afraid to ask anyone and everyone for help or for support.
Well, what is the risk of asking? If you don't know the answer, if they don't answer, you're fine, you're at the same point. So, yeah, no, I think you should always ask if you want to have somebody's opinion, talk to them, ask them. I mean, you don't have to do what they say at the end. You can still decide yourself, but at least you heard something else.
Very true. Yeah. Yeah, often we're afraid, I guess, of looking like we don't know what we're doing, but it's probably worse to make a stupid mistake than to ask a stupid question, right?
Well, actually, I'm a big fan of mistakes. I mean, I do the marketing maybe on the side note. Whenever I do something that really doesn't work, at least I can take a red pen and say, okay, this doesn't work. We don't have to do it again. And I know more than before I did this mistake. I mean, we do car subscriptions. It's not something that had happened the last 100 years. Of course, I have to do mistakes. Otherwise, I can never tell them, look, this works. If I don't try out and I don't do mistakes, how?
So speaking of mistakes, is there a major mistake that happened, and how did you get over that? What was your...
Well, I think I have do mistakes every day, several times. But I try not to think about them too much. Okay, maybe then I cry, I get upset. I'm like, oh my God, how could I do that? How stupid am I? But then there's already something else to think about, and somehow I just move on. But no, there are no big regrets in my life. That's in case this is the question.
No,
There's no mistake that is always in the back of my head.
Not necessarily a regret, but a major failure. Because, like you said, if you learn from the failure, it can be a stepping stone. But often people don't recognize that. And being able to talk about your failures is an important part of encouraging other people. So often that's why we're curious if there's an example of something where you screwed up and were able to learn something from that.
Yeah, well, I had to learn that if you have secret news and you want to give it to the press, you have to write it in red and very big, otherwise the news, because we just cooperated with Galaxus, and I wrote it in the email. It was obvious that it shouldn't go out, but it went 20 minutes print 2 days too early. So, as a startup cooperating with Galaxus, you don't want to be, the person who kind of screw it up. I mean, I was so mad at myself. I was like, I'm so sorry. And then the investors called me, you shouldn't be sorry, you wrote it. Okay, I'm not sorry. It was for me it was a horrible day, but I survived, so.
What's one of the bigger challenges that you've faced so far with building Carvolution?
I think it's when you're 3 people for half a year and now we're 18 people. It's not, I mean, obviously it's still a startup, but you realize, we need rules, we need a process, and you spend a lot of time doing this, but it's an important part, and also this people's business. I mean, I don't know how to lead people. I just somehow try to think about what kind of leader would I want to have, what kind of leaders did I appreciate. But it's always easier said than executed, and I think here, me personally, I have to learn a lot, but I have a great team. They're very understanding, so they're very tolerant with me, and somehow it works. The other big challenge, often people ask, oh, that's cool, you're in a startup, so you're going to do growth hacking now. And I'm like, yeah, we do some growth hacking with cars. How am I going to exponentially deliver cars? So we like to think of startups that they all go like this, but there are certain startups that in their nature you have to give them this natural growth, and working with these heavy assets like cars, you have to not only do marketing and sales, but you need operations, you have to source the cars, there's so many people involved, like people that deliver the car. If a customer calls on a Sunday morning and has an issue, you have to be there. And it feels easy, but all of a sudden you see the complexity of the business that just started a year ago, and you're like, well, are we sure we can do that? So yeah, it's growing fast, but sometimes we have to look at it not to push it even further, but to see that that's a good growth. Yeah.
If anyone has any questions along the way, then happy to take some. Yeah, I'll just get the mic.
And in case anybody needs a car, I'm willing to help.
I just had one question. How do you differentiate yourself from the classical leasing company? Aren't they trying to do the same thing?
Well, a leasing is something very different than a subscription. When people think about a leasing, not all of them, but majority thinks, the car is mine because I pay a monthly whatever. But with a leasing, you only finance the usage of the car. At the end, you have a fixed value of the car and you can buy it, or you can keep that money and buy any other car in the market. But people have this misconception about leasing. And with the leasing, you make a down payment, let's say 20% of the car, more or less. You're committed for, on average, 4 years in Switzerland. So it's 4 years. For me, it's a lot, 4 years. I don't know. I've never lived in the same place for 4 years. So a leasing, it's long-term. It's a commitment you make. So if you see all these print things, 99 francs for your car monthly, it's Audi, whatever. Yeah, and then you have to drive the car, actually, because 5,000 kilometers are not enough for most of us. So the leasing, it's long-term, you're committed to this contract, and it's not yours either. So why not have this, but be flexible, have a convenient solution, have a friendly service, being able to switch the car every half a year, not being scared of what happens if I get a child and I need a bigger car, what happens if I move to the city and I don't need a car at all. So a leasing, well, for me, leasing, it doesn't make sense.
Also, for you guys, the included is the tire changes and the service and all of that, which with the leasing is usually extra.
Yeah, the leasing is just the financing. We cover insurance, tires, vignette, I don't even know, but everything around the car, so you just have to fuel it. But leasing companies are actually not trying to get into the subscription market that much. We're talking more about traditional rental companies. But what they do, they take more or less the price that you would usually pay for 2 hours, and they multiply it by 12 to get a day, and then they multiply it by 30, and this is the price where you end. So it's super expensive what they're offering, but that's great for us. They're supporting the subscription model, and customers compare, and they come to us.
Okay, thanks.
I have many questions, but I'll ask you two. One is a very similar one, maybe a little bit more specific, probably something that investors have asked you already. What's the similarity to the carpooling? Kind of seems a good model as well for me. And what is your vision for Carvolution?
Well, car sharing, carpooling, I like these models, but as I told you at the very beginning, I come from a small village. I would first have to walk 10 minutes, take a bus, and hope that there's a car that I could use. The same thing with, if I want to ride with somebody else, chances are low that somebody else could take me for the distances I make. So I think they're great models, and they're an important part when we change mobility. But the majority of us, well, I'm lazy. My car is full of clothes. It's like a second room. I wouldn't let anybody in my car. First, I would have to explain why it's such a mess. And I just want to have the car in front of the door so I can leave whenever I want. And I hope one day that cars just drive themselves and that I can just wait. Oh, it's here. Okay, we go. But we first have to change the behavior of people, how they access cars or mobility. So Carvolution is they're adding a little step to making the owning a car useless, because in the future nobody's going to own a car unless you're a fan and you have your old-timer and it's a hobby. But I think for the use of a car in everyday life, there's no point of owning it. And we hope that we can make this transition away from car ownership. And yeah, I think it's picking up good.
I'm a bit confused then. How does it work exactly? Sorry, I haven't read your website really in detail. I would like to actually purchase what you offer. I would like to subscribe for 2 months, and then I would never want to subscribe again. Does that work, or how does the model work?
No, it doesn't work like that. So a car subscription is an alternative to buying or leasing a car. It's for people who use their car in everyday life, but they don't want the risk of selling the car in some years. They don't want the risk of getting out of a leasing contract. So if you take a car from us, you go on the website, you pick the car, you say, we have 3 months, it's like a test subscription, or 6 months. After this minimum duration, you can cancel every month, so you never have a car you don't need anymore. And every 6 months, if you feel like it, most people don't, you can change it for another one. So you can, I don't like to say it, but you could have a convertible in summer and an SUV in winter. But if everybody would do that, we would have a huge problem, obviously. So, but many people don't like to drive convertibles, so that's great.
Okay. What is your vision for the company?
The vision. So I'm so caught always in my everyday life, like, oh, delivery there and there. I think in mobility, it's going to need so many small parts of small changes, because we don't know what the bigger solution is yet, or how fast, or where exactly it's going to come from. And with Carvolution, it's really to move away from owning, just to having access. And besides that, we of course want to have our people have the greatest customer experience when they have a car with extra services. Obviously, we gather a lot of data where we have the possibility to get them clean their car, to fuel their car, send them a discount of 5%, cooperating with other companies, and yeah.
Thanks.
The pricing. Are you still learning about the pricing, or you knew it how much this system costs? Because I checked the homepage, and I have a second-hand car, small car, and so on. But like most of us, I'm using my car 10% of the time. 90% is parked outside, and I'm ashamed of it. But the pricing, it's very interesting. Did anybody help you? What about if it's not enough, or is too much, or who helped you with the price, or you knew it, how much I have to pay for your system, for your service?
Well, the prices, it's good because it's always a discussion. You have a CFO who says, we need this margin. We have marketing who says, let's get all the cars out. Let's make it as cheap as possible. It's going to be great. We're going to grow. So you have to find yourself somewhere in the middle, right? But of course, we have prices, yes. They're not for free. Not all cars are calculated the same. It's a certain portfolio where you try to understand how is a person moving for life. Maybe they start with a smaller car, they make a certain career. But the pricing itself, I mean, the great thing about this car subscription, it already exists in the US. We didn't invent anything crazy here. It's just about getting the execution right, knowing how to scale the marketing and sales, and keeping up the quality. Did you find them high or low?
For me, high.
$399. This is the cheapest car we have per month. So it wasn't us calculating it, but LeasePlan says an average car, so not even the smallest, is over $700 a month. The horrible thing about cars, we ignore what they cost. We think about the fueling, we maybe think about the price we bought them for, but then it's out of our heads. So to educate people on what is actually the full cost of mobility is a huge challenge.
I guess so.
But
Yeah,
it's cheap.
Well, not cheap, it's fair.
That was something I was thinking when looking through your website would be interesting from a, like you said, from an educational perspective. People don't think about changing the tires, the service, the random breakdowns or the random issues that you have. Okay, maybe, for example, I bought a car 5 years ago, it was 6 months old, and for the first 4 years, all I had to do was change the oil. Last year, I had a bunch of expensive repairs, which shouldn't happen with a 5-year-old car, but
they happen.
They happen. And so, then when you take that and calculate that all together, it starts to make sense, but people don't think about it. You think of, you have your car, it's paid off, or I'm paying it off. You don't see it as an actual expense. You just,
But I think it shouldn't be us who try to pretend knowing how to calculate costs. I mean, who would believe us? But of course, we're working with others to make sure that this full cost of mobility is being discussed, that people actually understand what they spend. We spend a lot of time calculating it with our customers, but I wouldn't write on the website, hello, your average car costs usually, because I mean, we're offering a car subscription. We cannot be the ones calculating what a car costs. I wouldn't believe it to ourselves.
It's so funny that you say that, because in America they would, right? In America they place the amount and they say, look, the subscription costs $300 and this is what you would pay if you leased it and this is what you pay. So it's a very different market here, I guess, because it's very open and it's to say, look, this is so much more affordable long term and you have so much more choice. And it's not something that the market will pick up here. But in America, it's very, of course you should go for this, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
where's the mic?
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Well, first of all, congratulations. It's very nice to see a young lady doing this. Really.
Thank you.
Pleasure. And then the second question is, at the moment there is a lot of startups in mobility. One big one is Tesla.
The forever startup.
Yeah, genau. So the point is a lot of money putting into mobility at the moment, and I personally don't know if one day this big company is going to be profitable. What is your condition at the moment, without going into deep? Are you profitable now, or are you still out of the investors? How is the balance sheet?
Well, maybe to add, we only founded this company March 2018. So maybe this answers your question.
Fair enough. And the second question, if you allowed me, because this is very important. You have in your strategy like a creative department. Creativity is the concept.
Yeah, of course, we try to be creative, but I'm always scared to say that. As CMO, I believe it doesn't matter what creatives I like or I don't, because at the end we have the data, either it works or it doesn't. So if I like it or not, yeah, of course I have to be the person who decides what we put somewhere, but I wouldn't mind if it wasn't that pretty, if at the end it converts. I mean, this is why we need marketing, otherwise I would have gone to art. So I try to put my personal belief or what I think looks nice or is going to work. I just say, okay, let's do tests and let's do them over and over again. But I hope things don't look ugly. We work with freelancers, but we also have a graphic designer in-house. So we somehow try to put things together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Going back a little bit to what we were talking about before in building a team, like you said, there's a big difference in being you and your co-founder and then all of a sudden having to hire people. In some cases it's complete strangers that you don't know, and bringing them into your inner circle, and this baby of yours that you've put so much effort into, and having to start to share responsibility and delegate. How was that transition from that small, close-knit group of people to actually hiring people?
I think that's actually the most scary part. To start it, fair enough, you start it, but then you lose control of what you first were pushing, and you knew exactly what happens when these days I hear something was wrong with a delivery. I stop everything I'm doing and I call the client again saying, what happened? I have to understand where the process went wrong. And yeah, when you grow, you have to delegate. I realize it with my team. I don't only have to make sure that I spend my time in the best way I can, but that they spend their time in the best way they can. You're responsible for other people. But I also think it's really nice, but yeah, I think I have to learn a lot there.
What do you look for when hiring people?
Oh, it's just gut feeling. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you have to work with them, so obviously you better like them. Or you're so impressed by what they say that you don't even have to like them, that you're just impressed by their skills, and then you start liking them. But yeah, we're not all best friends, but we work perfectly fine together, and think you need to respect the other person, what they know, what they say, how they approach things. But yeah, you cannot employ somebody where you think, oh my God, it's...
At the end of the day, you usually spend more time with your work colleagues than with your family, so yeah, you better like them, right?
Yeah, but it's still work. We're not playing with investors' money there. So at the end, you also need the skills. So it's not just all fun and everything in startups.
Speaking of skills, what do you see, or in the people that you work with or have hired, what is one of the more underappreciated skill sets, or not so obvious?
Wait, I didn't get the question again.
What is a skill set or a skill that is usually not so obvious, or that's usually underappreciated, but that's really valuable?
Well, I think people often hire for what they did in previous jobs, but I think what you should hire for is where somebody wants to go. If they describe you the job that you're willing to give them, maybe they don't see themselves there yet, but they will have this inner will to put the effort to learn and to grow into this position. Whereas if somebody says, yeah, that's exactly what I do, I know everything, where is this ambition gonna come from? So I'd rather hire somebody who's underqualified, maybe you would even call it not qualified, but who really wants to grow into that. I think this is when you can achieve great things. I mean, no, I didn't have any startup skills at all in the first place, but you learn, so.
What's your people strategy now? What are you looking for example?
Oh, we're looking for so many people. The biggest struggle we're experiencing is in development. So we're probably gonna nearshore it. We are based in Banville. You have to imagine somebody saying, yeah, this job looks interesting. And you say, yeah, so from Zurich it's 1 hour. There's not even a Migros, a Den, or a Coop in this village. We have a train station where you have to press in order for the train to stop. So, yeah, recruitment, it's hardcore. I don't know, it all depends on network, but we have a great VC. They just set up like a talent pool thing where you can look with other startups, maybe somebody who didn't fit there is the right match for you. So you just have to always keep your eyes and ears open, and maybe you're not even looking to hire somebody, but maybe he would be a great personality. So yeah, I think you have to find them in your network.
But you are looking.
Yeah.
I think, well, the question is, are you hiring? So maybe
Yes, we are hiring.
maybe there's someone in the crowd that's
Who's looking for a job? Or a car, still? Yeah, we're looking for head of sales for more analytical things, for developers, Then we had a problem even to find people to take care of the cars, to deliver the cars. So we delivered them ourselves. Now we're working with an agency. So we need so many people. I don't even have time to update the website. But we also get many people that apply because they hear about it, they ask.
Yeah.
Yes, Ian.
Curious about the location. Have you thought about moving to somewhere a bit less nowhere like?
We thought about it, and still the decision was to go to Bannwil, because if you have a map of Switzerland, it's in the middle. It's an hour Zurich, or 40 minutes Zurich, 40 minutes Bern, 40 minutes Basel. So we delivered the cars. So yeah, I would also like to work in Zurich, but I also want this business to somehow make sense. So this is where it makes sense for our case. And we like it now there. So it's not that we're unhappy, just it's always a bit of subject.
I have a question about the customers. So what worked for you the best so the customers will actually discover you, or which marketing channels? Was it social media for you or 20 minutes, and which was the best?
So, of course, with online marketing, you can do a lot, but people don't just Google car subscription or Carvolution because they don't know it, they don't look for it. I'm a big fan of search ads, but the market was a bit limited there. So display ads, do you click on something you don't really know? Retargeting works perfectly, high conversions, perfect, but somehow you have to get the attention. So I don't know if you saw it in 20 minutes, we just wrote there, the cheapest car of Switzerland. People read it, people click it, people calculate. If you just say, look, probably the calculation was totally wrong, but at least people start getting involved. And this is what we need, and yeah, 20 minutes works great.
What advice would you give to a young you?
To myself.
Yeah.
When?
Before you started Carvolution.
Before I started Carvolution. I don't know. An advice. Yeah, I think I need some more years to come up with these smart things to say. So at the moment, maybe next time.
I guess, yeah, it's interesting how, in your case, it evolved pretty quickly. A lot of people, I guess, had more experiences or hit their head against the wall a few more times before they discover what they want to do. So it's exciting to have this opportunity at such an early stage. What advice would you give to others wanting to start a startup here in Switzerland?
It's funny that people always want advices, and I just wonder, but where's the problem with starting? You can always stop, so people talk about having a startup as if it was like a life-threatening situation, but it's not. It's the same as a corporate job. If you don't like it, okay, maybe you lost some money, maybe you lost some time, but probably you had a great experience, and it's not as scary as people make it sound. Maybe just draw the worst case, and if then you still think it's a horrible case, without ignoring all the great things that could happen to you, then I would just start. Nobody can give you this secret advice, or at least not me yet.
Just starting is good advice. It's something we were talking earlier about the risk averseness that the investors tend to have, but it's not only the investors, the entrepreneurs are also quite risk averse in Switzerland.
Yeah, that must be hard to try to get money if you're not fully convinced.
Speaking of money, you just had your Series A investment. In the bigger picture, in the longer term, do you have a exit strategy?
Maybe.
How do you see that playing out?
Well, first we have a Series B, so this is the next big thought we have, and not the exit.
Okay. Is it something, because it's often a topic that comes up in the sense of when you take on funding, of course the investors are looking for their return and their opportunities there. And some people have that concept early on, and others feel like they're in it for life, and they're going to take their company with them all the way.
Yeah, but if we would have a defined exit strategy.
Not necessarily defined, but...
Yeah, but if we would already be thinking too much about how to get out of this, I would go to work just for the sake of money. And I don't want to go to work just for the sake of money. I mean, we're growing. There are so many more exciting things in how we're going to exit. And we have a CFO. I'm sure he has his thoughts on that, but I just want to work with these people, to grow the company, to have a great customer experience. So, no, I don't want to think about an exit. No.
How do you balance work, life, private life, fun, free time?
Yeah, like on the weekends, I don't work in case there's a massive urgency or whatever happens. Yeah, the weekend is just a weekend. I mean, we are on the market for a year now, and yeah, like working until 3 o'clock several weeks, it's not healthy. It's how I passed my exams. And you get tired, but we don't have enough time to get tired. This is going to be some more years. It's not a sprint, this is a marathon, so I better stay happy and healthy while I do that. And yeah, I do a lot of horse riding.
So that was my next question. What do you do in your downtime? Mainly horse riding, or?
Horse riding, going out with friends. I guess the normal things that somebody does when he's 24.
What was it like the first subscription you sold? What was the feeling, the emotion, or was it too close to home? Was it your CFO who bought the first subscription?
No, it's actually a client that ended up not paying. So we had to take the car back. So looking back now, it was horrible, but we learned you have to check credit scores. Great experience, but now it's safe. All the clients are paying. Yeah, of course, it was a special moment until I realized we didn't earn any money with that. But you just want to get the car out, so it was a bit hard.
What are some things that you do or that you can recommend to inspire your team, to inspire your employees?
Well, I think they just have to see how much you enjoy reaching the goals, growing, how happy you are. I mean, I get super excited. I have like an SMS notification every time somebody orders a car. And I'm like in the office, subscription! They look at me like, oh my God, what's wrong with her again? And they just see how happy I am for every client we get. And I would deliver cars myself in the evening, not on weekends, but during the week on the evening. So it's just, if you show them how much you want this and how important they are too to achieve their goals. I mean, we broke down the goals so that everybody can celebrate something when we just reach the goal. So everybody can be happy for reaching his own goal.
And I was going to say, I had another thought, lost my train of thought. Yeah, I guess celebrating both the big and the small wins is important. I think that's a key part of building your team and keeping the team motivated, inspired.
Yeah, I think we celebrated too much because every time we celebrate, we eat pizza together, and they don't want to eat pizza anymore. So we have to think about something else, but there's no delivery to Bonneville. There's not pizza.
So there's a new startup idea to deliver to Bonneville.
You can make the algorithms. Oh yeah.
Deliver some food. They like sushi.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Do you have a ritual
every day. Is there something that you do every day that inspire you, or the?
Or what I do every day, I get up early, I get into my car, and I drive to the office. So, no, I'm not very spiritual or anything, but what are you laughing? Yeah, I don't know. Actually not. Maybe I could pick something up. Do you have one?
Yes.
What?
I do every morning meditation, for example, half an hour.
I tried this, but I get nervous doing it. Because I would have to get it out of my head that I have to be efficient.
Yeah, it should be the opposite.
Yeah, I know. But maybe one day I'm going to have one.
What is the picture you have about your company? And when do you see it like that?
You mean like the picture, not the...
I mean, how you want to see your company, and when do you want to see it? How do you want to see your company?
So I want to see it as something very colorful and happy, where, I don't know if I would picture it, there would be people. Funny enough, there would be no cars in it. So, I don't know. Yeah, I would be happy and many happy people, just... Not anymore.
No, change the menu, David.
Yeah,
Mexican tacos.
that would be good.
I think we had another question over here.
Me? Yeah. Maybe back to sort of your co-workers and partners. You said you had 80 employees at the moment, right? And
14?
18.
18.
I counted this morning.
And 5 partners. So my question would be, how did you manage to find partners? What was sort of, how did you go about that? And
So the co-founders, how I found them? Well, I think the first one saw how desperate I'm trying to figure out this thing with cars. And he has a massive background. So it was a dealer that I was calling saying I need 10 cars, some small ones, bigger ones, 4 wheels, you know. And yeah, he just called me and said, this concept is great. Don't you need anybody who knows something about cars? Yeah, this is definitely what we need next. And then, then you need a website. You have to figure out how to manage cars. Technology, yeah, I like technology, but do I know enough about it? No, obviously not. So the next person who joined was our CTO, so the website, the backend, the data, network. Then the next was, I realized quite early that it's hard to manage people, so to find the right CEO was an important task for us. And we also found him over the network. The only we didn't find over a network was the CFO. He read an article in the Alma magazine from HSG. He called us saying, you're gonna have some challenges financing this. Yes. And so he joined.
sorry for so many questions. I promised the last one. There are a lot of cars on the market. There's a lot of waste. I checked your website. You only offer new cars. Why wouldn't you offer new used cars? What's wrong with that model?
So it's new and almost new. So what is wrong with that model? I mean, I studied in St. Gallen, where you basically learn how to earn money. Should we offer used cars? We would, if we could keep the promise that it's reliable. But we don't have a service concept for that. But the moment we have it, we're going to open it to used cars. But what you cannot do as a startup is to start offering something where you cannot keep the promise, which has to be reliable. Nobody wants a car that breaks down. So, yeah, I would like to believe that we have the perfect sustainable solution. But it's cars, it's the way people move these days. But with our subscription, you're able to go as fast as technology is moving. So whoever has a subscription now is not going to be the one regretting in 2 years that he bought a car when there's something much fancier on the market. So you're open to innovation, what you're not with a leasing or with a bought car when you think, oh, it's only 20,000 kilometers, I'm going to have a big loss if I lose it now. So this is how we want to contribute to keeping people open to new models, giving them access to new technologies, new cars. Everything's going so fast there with how far electric cars reach. But of course, it's cars.
You
Yes.
do have 2 electric cars, right, currently on your list?
At the moment, just one. It's the Renault Zoe. It's cute. It's a cute car. We had the Tesla in the fleet. Obviously, as a startup, you're always thinking about risk. I mean, in itself, having a startup can be quite risky. So you try not to take the most risky car that is on the market.
What's the life cycle of your cars? I mean, obviously, it's a new company, so you maybe haven't reached that yet.
Well, it's longer than a year. This is what I can safely say at the moment. How long we're planning to keep them in our fleet, it depends on how much people drive. So you have time and how new the model itself is, and you have the kilometers that were made with this car. So it's a combination of both factors, but we try to have the newest models so far, and not older than 3 years. Well, like every other car, they go on the market. So we cannot do like this and they're gone. So, and we don't shoot them to the moon. It's a car, it goes back on the market. It's
Just resold and we'll go back to the...
maybe, I like to think that maybe one day we have this second-hand Carvolution. That's cheaper, not the newest car, but who knows? I mean, now we just have to focus, and our main thing is not to sell cars, so actually we have a fixed price, how we can give them back, so we don't have the risk of selling them.
So we like to wrap up our session with a new series of questions. We call this a rapid fire question. The idea is that the first thing that comes to mind, there's no right or wrong answer.
There's always right or wrong, no?
There is no right or
Okay.
wrong. So what is one item that you own that you would never sell?
My horse.
What is your most unusual skill?
How easily you can scare me.
What's more important, strength, speed, or stamina?
Speed.
Which historical figure do you admire?
Albert Einstein.
What's your favorite season of the year?
Summer.
When was the last time that you tried something new?
I think every day there's something new.
Team or single founder?
Team.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Wine or beer?
Wine.
The favorite app on your phone?
WhatsApp.
What's something that's on your bucket
No,
list?
it's Carvolution app, actually. Sorry.
See, that was a trick question.
Saw it.
What's something on your bucket list?
Well, I don't have one, but I should definitely create one.
So the creating a bucket list is now on your
that's
bucket.
Perfect, yes. I take that.
If you could have the attribute of an animal, which animal would you choose?
A bird. So for the flying.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, India. And
Thank
thank you for
you
all
for
your
having me.
insights.